No. Arms, neck.
Damn pen.
Good evening. I'm calling to order the work session of the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners this Monday, November the 14th, 2022. And as is our custom, we'll begin our meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you. Commissioner Farrell, would you lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. Would everyone rise to the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You have the agenda before you. Is there a motion to approve either the agenda as proposed or amendments to modify the agenda?
Motion to approve as indicated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Rose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. It's my pleasure to invite two folks up to the, let's see, how can we do this? Let us Mr. Honeycutt and Mr. Schultz would come up, please. I suppose we could have asked you all to lead the pledge. You know, there's so many times that we invite Boy Scouts from Troop 93 to fulfill their merit badge requirements to come and lead the pledge. And I want you to know that the last group that we had not only did the pledge, but they did several other, the Scout oath or whatever. Anyway, they were just amazing. It's my pleasure to present the resolution of the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners honoring the 75th anniversary of Boy Scout Troop number 93 of Pittsburgh, North Carolina. Whereas Boy Scout Troop 93 of Pittsburgh, North Carolina was formed out of Troop 83 in the New Salem community outside the town of Pittsburgh, which was led by Dr. Mathieson. Troop 83 was disbanded during the Second World War. And whereas on March 17th, 1947, Troop 93 was chartered by William Lancaster, C.E. Bryan Sr., and Dave Roberts. And the troop consisted of 17 scouts. Henry Horton was scoutmaster from 1951 to 1956, when Harold Boone took leadership until 1985. And whereas the troop was meeting in the Pittsburgh Community House until 1995, when Tom and Jean Reeves donated 5 acres of land near their farm on Highway 64 for a permanent home for the troop. Adult scoutmasters and assistants built the hut and created an outdoor area. This property was named in honor of Harold Boone, whose leadership had brought the troop to its new home. Whereas leaders from the 1990s and 2000s included Tommy George, Randy Kramer, William Browder, and Roger Dixon. Randall Goodwin has served as scoutmaster from 2004 until present day. No, now you are the present. No. So Mr. Honeycutt is the current. We'll make that correction. And whereas the dedication of these scoutmasters to the program has advanced with a vast number of scouts meeting weekly for merit badges, instruction and camping, safety, community, and patriotism, plus local camping trips, scout trips, and a major trip to Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. As this rank of Eagle Scout has been achieved by 80 scouts from Troop 93 since the first Eagle was earned by Russell Gaddis in 1961 until present. A full roster of the Eagle Scouts is available on the troop's website. Now, therefore, for the scouts, scoutmasters, assistants, parents, and generosity of the Reeves family and other community donors, the Pittsboro Board of Commissioners recognizes and honors the 75th anniversary of Boy Scout Troop 93 of Pittsboro, whereby young scouts in our area and adult scoutmasters and their assistants have given and been given the value of the scouting experience, camping, respect for the outdoors, for the environment, and for our state and nation. Let this resolution be recorded on the official records of the town of Pittsboro this the 14th day of November 2022. And on behalf of the town, I'd like to congratulate you, and you'll receive a copy of this resolution as soon as we get it to you and get the corrections made. Thank you very much. Now I'll submit to the board. Would there be a resolution to accept this? Would there be an offer to accept this resolution on behalf of you, the board members?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Farrell.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Shipp. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved this day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Next on the agenda is the resolution for authorizing sale of surplus items. Before we actually get to that resolution, Commissioner Bonnet, you had raised the possibility of removing one item from the list. And I believe, did everyone get his email regarding that removal? Is there a wish that we remove that one item?
Yeah, I don't know what's involved with the cost of keeping the vehicle, but if we can retain the vehicle in our fleet until such time as we're interested in applying for a grant to replace that diesel vehicle, there are generous grants available. But those grants would not be available to us if we didn't have a vehicle to scrap.
Just, I believe we did receive an email from Mr. Pickett regarding that. I'm not sure if this is, I'm sure Hazen can update that, but it seemed like Adam said that vehicle was not in the category for this grant. Now, I may be wrong. You can double check it.
I responded to him.
Okay, I didn't see your
Yeah.
response.
I did it privately. Yeah, it's an F-800. And that is either a class 6, 7, or 8 diesel vehicle. And so I believe that it is eligible.
What's the pleasure of the board? You want to pass the resolution as it stands or pass the resolution accepting that diesel vehicle, making it subject to grants, eligible for grants?
I think I'm curious if staff got any insights, whether or not there are substantial costs associated with keeping it in our fleet, just parking it.
I do not think it's a problem to keep the vehicle and let's try for a grant. And if we don't get the grant, we can always surplus it in 6 months or, next time we surplus vehicles.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So is there a motion to amend the resolution?
So moved.
Seconded, motion made by Commissioner Bonnet, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And then your vote on the resolution then, which reads that Pittsboro owns certain items of personal property that have become surplus for its current needs. And then the recitation of the general statute number, which permits the town to sell such property upon authorization at a regular meeting, notice to the public, et cetera. That the town-owned property is listed on Schedule A and is declared to be surplus. And therefore, tonight at this public meeting, it is resolved that the finance director is hereby authorized to dispose of the items listed by any means, including offering for sale at public auction, utilizing the services of propertyroom.com to sell items attached on Schedule A. Any items not sold in this method will subsequently be sold by private sale, donated, or destroyed. Therefore, the resolution approves that tonight, November the 14th, 2022. Motion to accept the resolution as it's amended.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bonnets. Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We also have a resolution for acceptance of a state revolving loan. And this is a resolution stating, whereas the North Carolina Clean Water Revolving Loan and Grant Act of 1987 has authorized the making of loans and grants of aid eligible to units of government in financing the cost of construction of wastewater treatment works, wastewater collection systems, and water supply systems, water conservation projects. And whereas the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has offered a state revolving loan in the amount of $26,585,500 for the construction of wastewater treatment system improvements. And whereas the town intends to construct such project in accordance with the approved plans and specifications. Whereas the Board of Commissioners in convened regular meeting resolve that the town hereby accepts the state revolving loan and that the town does give assurance to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality as to all the items specified in the loan offer and assurances adhered to. That Hazen Blodgett, interim town manager, and successors so titled are hereby authorized and directed to furnish such information as the appropriate state agency may request in connection with the application of this project, with the assurances contained above, and to execute any other documents that might be required in connection with the application. This resolution, approved at a regular town meeting on November 14th, 2022, shall be entered in the public records for the town of Pittsboro. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bonnets,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Shipp. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And our last resolution is that a recording regarding the Board of Adjustment. Whereas the Town Board of Adjustment consists of 5 members representing the residents of the town and its extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. And whereas North Carolina General Statute 160D 307 requires the town to provide a means of proportional representation based on population for residents of the extraterritorial area to be regulated. And whereas the estimated population of the town is 5,051 persons, according to the latest estimate from the Chatham County GIS Department. And whereas the estimated population of the town's ETJ is 2,723 persons, according to the latest estimate from Chatham County GIS. Whereas the estimated combined population of the town's ETJ with the town's corporate limits total 7,774 persons, according to the last estimate from the GIS department. Whereas the composition of the regular members of the Board of Adjustment shall reflect proportional representation between the population of the board and within the ETJ. And this shall be determined by estimating the total population as a percentage of the population of the town's corporate limits and combined and multiplying this percentage by 5 and rounding up to the next whole number. And the resulting product is, based on this, the Board of Adjustment shall have 2 regular members who reside within the ETJ. Now, therefore, it shall be resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the town of Pittsboro that based on the current population estimates for the town and its ETJ, 2 residents of the town's ETJ jurisdiction are an appropriate number of regular members of the town's Board of Adjustment pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160D 1307. Adopted this the 14th day of November 2022. And is there a motion to accept this resolution?
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Farrell,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Proceeding into our work session tonight, which is a wonderful thing. It's a suggestion that we have toyed with for a period of time, but also great thanks to our interim town manager, Hazen Blodgett, because he was used to operating in another jurisdiction this way. It gives us a greater opportunity, I think, to take a look at some of the heady issues in more detail. And so the very first issue that we will approach tonight in our work session is water and sewer discussion. Will be led in that discussion by Kent Jackson. And so I don't know if you have introductory remarks to make or how we will proceed here, Kent.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mayor. And Commissioner, I'm glad to be with you tonight. So we know we have very significant needs related to water and sewer utilities, and especially in the case of sewer critical needs as far as that is concerned. So I think tonight we're going to talk about those needs, talk about reflect a little bit on the kind of timeline of how we have arrived at this point, and then talk about some of the options that are presenting themselves to the town for addressing some of these needs. So as we've prepared for this evening, Kyle and Hazen and myself have worked together to put together the presentation materials. Some of those I will be presenting, and some of those I think Kyle will be presenting. I think it's probably most appropriate to begin with Kyle's information and then kind of work into some of the details after that.
Thank you, Ken. I don't know who's running the show, but
Larry, probably.
Laura, you have the presentations?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Plan is the work session presentation you sent.
The one
It will be Kyle.
I sent.
Is maybe called a capacity chart or something like that.
Yeah, I think.
File name is Pittsburgh Utility Capacity with the date.
Water and wastewater treatment capacity in Pittsburgh.
I think,
Yes.
yes.
Quite a few and very similar.
Sorry, mine is work session W_WW. That's it.
Oh, okay, it's different.
Slightly different from what was before, but as Ken said, I want to take kind of a higher level view of it and then let him and the staff, get into the details more as we go through a little bit on how we got here, but more on where we can go from where we are today. Sorry.
So,
All right. If you want to go to the next slide. So this is very general on purpose, sketch like that we are for sewer. We know we are approaching and or over our sewer capacity compared to our demand. And we have been for a while. And then if you want to go to the next slide, we'll get to the numbers on this later. And then same thing with water, and we haven't talked about water as much, but we are definitely approaching the capacity of our current water plant. And need some solutions to that as well. If you want to go to the next, Colby. So this is just generally about the development moratoriums that we've had in the town of Pittsburgh, and started back in April of 1999 with some form of development moratorium as the red lines on that chart, going through about April. So sometime about mid 2011. And then since then, we haven't had a development moratorium, but we've had functional limits based on the sewer capacity. So some of the things we're going to talk about tonight are going to seem like quick decisions or things like that. But this is something that has been contemplated for a while as we look at sewer capacity coming up. I think at the time, Kent, if you can remind, I think in 99, we were at 200,000 gallons of 750 gallons, 750,000. Right. So it was very early on thinking about it in that process. And we're obviously much further along now, but no more sewer capacity is available or really planned for right now since 1999. Next slide. So that's enough about the history. This is the scene from Apollo 13 where they realize they have a issue with a CO2 filter and they got to figure something out. This is all the stuff they have in the room or that they have up on the module in space. And that's what they have to deal with to solve the problem. And so that's really how I feel about this too. There's been a lot of studies and agreements and things over time as we've talked about this, but what I really want to focus on is where we're at today and where we can go in the future. Those past things can, inform future agreements and make sure that, we look at some of those lessons of history going forward. But I think most important is going forward from today. So what my future vision is that we've talked a lot about sewer capacity, and that going forward, we don't talk about sewer capacity eventually, because we have it and we have plenty to do the development that we want to do in Pittsburgh and that others want to do. And we control the development through land use planning. And we do the planning and the visioning about land use. And then we have the capacity available to execute those things. But that's a shift from where we've been at for sure. So hopefully this is big enough on everywhere else, but right now what we have, these are based on agreements that are currently in place for sewer capacity. So for the town of Pittsburgh, it starts out as the green line. That's the total there. It goes into the red line, but we had just over, or we had about 600,000 gallons until 2021. We were allowed to increase that to 90% of the plant capacity. So our current plant capacity is 750,000 gallons. We were allowed in 2021 to formally allow up to 90% of that capacity, which is 675,000 gallons, which is where we're at today. As you can see, the demand and these demand numbers are from the 2021 Freeze and Nichols report that they gave to us. Our demand is currently above our plant capacity. The reason that is, we do have more demand, but those are actual numbers because that's the worst day. We have some equalization tanks. We have some ways that we can, our staff is very good at dealing with what we have and keeping up with the capacity, but we have less capacity now than we have demand for, and that's expected to continue. And then in 2022, this year, Chatham Park's water recovery center that they built opened, and it will soon be providing, it is starting up, as they get more. So that's 500,000 gallons of capacity. So that increases the total capacity available in Pittsburgh to 1.25 million gallons a day of treatment capacity. We'll talk more later about the Forcemain. That was what we accepted the SRF loan for this evening. So the Forcemain is expected to open in 2024. That would be 1.25 million gallons a day for the Chatham Park PDD with the current arrangements, and then 0.75 for the town of Pittsburgh outside of the PDD. For Chatham Park, that's additive to their wastewater treatment plant, and for the town of Pittsburgh, it replaces the wastewater treatment plant. So when the Forcemain opens, Pittsburgh's capacity will go from 675,000 gallons a day to 750,000 gallons a day. But we're approaching that capacity already. So in 2024, that won't be enough. And then there's also a option to increase the Sanford Forcemain from 2 million gallons to 5 million gallons a day. That would require an agreement with Sanford for that additional treatment capacity. And at this point, Sanford has contemplated that more with Chatham Park than they have with the town of Pittsburgh. So as we look today, there's increasing capacity potential in the town of Pittsburgh, but the majority of that is reserved for the Chatham Park PDD. And outside the Chatham Park PDD, where we still have the 0.75 MGD that has been had since that plant was built. So when we merge, this picture changes a lot. And the reason is that all of those deals that we have sort of get merged into one combination between Chatham Park and Pittsburgh and the town of Sanford. So what that does is the purple line on here is the Sanford capacity. And this assumes things like Chatham Park would sell their water recovery center to the town of Sanford. We would have a different deal about what is in the Forcemain, the 2 million gallon Forcemain, and then the eventual 5 million gallon Forcemain. And then there's also the potential, Pittsburgh still has discharges of 0.75 MGD in Robeson Creek that would be available once we shut our plant down. And then we also have just under 2 million gallons into the Haw River. So those would be potential in the future to increase the capacity of the the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center, which would become the Sanford Water Recovery Center in the merger scenario. It's also an option to build a different sewer plant that would handle 2 million gallons or something like that. But we have, once the Forcemain goes in place, we'll have about 2.75 MGD of discharge available in Pittsburgh that could be used. But the short of this, or the big difference, is that it would give 2.5 million gallons of sewer treatment capacity in 2024 in Pittsboro that would be Sanford's. And so that could be more, that could be distributed more evenly between the town of Pittsboro and the Chatham Park PDD, because we'd have a plan for more sewer capacity in the future. So with that planned sewer capacity out to the future up to just over 8 million gallons, then that it gives a lot more opportunity for development outside of the PDD and inside of the PDD as we have that merged plan going forward. Any questions on that? So
No
far?
questions, but I will, a couple of footnotes just to emphasize points you made. So with the 90%, that does represent at this point our regulatory limit of the 90%. And then also just to add emphasis on talking about the work that the wastewater treatment plant staff have done. I've talked with them recently about just numerically some of the improvements since about 2017. They've been focusing on reducing discharges, some of the elements that the state tests for. They've really made some significant progress, considering the equipment and the, condition of the plant. So that is certainly worthy to be emphasized.
Definitely. They're doing an excellent job with the equipment and facilities that they have, for sure. Go ahead. So for water capacity.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, I do have a little something to ask. When you were talking about possible sale of the Chatham Park plant there, okay, there is a Pittsboro permit, wastewater permit. What's going to happen in reference to that in that type of episode?
Sure. So there's a lot of details to work out for the merger. And really it would be a merger between Pittsboro and Sanford for the water and wastewater systems. But Chatham Park is very involved because of the arrangements with the Forcemain, because of they own the plants. But so, I mean, I say sell and that they would want to be compensated for it. But it may not be an outright sale. It may be a part of the merger.
So you would merge
all of those things
and merge the permit as well. That's what I'm asking.
Correct.
Okay.
And a lot of these things are details that we have to work out in the merger agreement of because there's not only that permit, but the Robeson Creek discharge, the Haw River discharge, the futures in the Western Intake Partnership, and all of those things. There's a lot of pieces that go into that merger puzzle, but it's really 3 parties working together for that.
Right. And then you had said something, maybe I'm too far ahead, in reference to possibly building a facility, Pittsboro building a facility. So if we merge, of course, that would go away. The permit would go away.
Sure. A facility could be built in Pittsboro, or the current Chatham Park plant could be expanded, or a different facility could be built in Pittsboro, but that would be done by Sanford.
So if you've already merged, that's what I'm asking. If you already merged and then we can't get enough capacity from Sanford, what would happen to the permit that we used in the merger? Would that come back to Pittsboro because we're building our own plant?
I don't think we would. I mean, Sanford would handle our needs for water and wastewater if we merge, when we merge.
So that wouldn't be an option. That's what you're saying.
Well,
more than likely.
It's an option for them, but it wouldn't likely be an option for Pittsboro to get back into the wastewater business down the road with those permits.
Okay.
I think it does add emphasis to paying particular attention to that detail when we're working through merger, the details of the merger.
Yes, definitely.
Right. Okay. Thank you both.
John.
Yeah. Thank you, Kyle. So what is the difference between this 2021 estimate of demand and paper flow and tributary flow?
So it is, the data is tributary till 2021, and then it's estimated beyond that. And certainly what we don't know about that estimate is development outside of the PDD, really. I actually talked to Becky Smith a little bit about this today, but the demand or the development outside of the PDD has been suppressed by lack of sewer. And so we don't have a great handle on what that demand is outside of the PDD. It's likely higher than is shown here, but those are actual numbers to 2021. And then it's projected beyond 2021.
And we, well, just to add to that, we had determined in June of this year that our flows were approximately 700,000 gallons when you take into effect the tributary flow plan, permitted flow, and allocations that have been approved but not active.
But our worst case days have been over 1 million for a few years, I
Sure.
think,
Yes.
because of infiltration and, other things also. So water capacity also, a lot of our effort has been about sewer capacity and where we are on this, but the projections show us, our use and the projections show us being out of water capacity somewhere around 2024, 2025 with our current 2 million gallon plant. And you can see the line is a little bit suppressed there too. I think I think that those projections were based on sewer capacity. And if we don't have sewer capacity, we obviously are going to be limited on water capacity also. So it's a little bit of suppression of the demand, but somewhere around 2024, 2025, we'll be out of water capacity in the town of Pittsboro. And then, and that's at 2 million gallons. So that our advanced treatment system is, somewhere in that too, where we have 1.5 million gallons right now of advanced treatment. So we're right on the edge of water capacity also. The only thing that's really in place right now is there's, again, somewhat of an agreement between Chatham Park and Sanford directly for a 3 million gallon water line. And then Pittsboro is also working on the design of that water plant expansion, but we have not committed yet to the construction of that water line. And so that's a water line that would go from the Moncure mega site, the VinFast site, up to the town of Pittsboro for water from Sanford. And I know there's questions about this too, but part of that project, and so we're already participating in the design of that project. And part of that project is advanced treatment that is GAC, like we have installed in our plant, and it would be for the whole Sanford plant. So all of Sanford's water, that project would include upgrading it to the same treatment that we have in Pittsboro.
As of what date?
As
of what date?
For what?
When would that whole plant GAC filter be installed?
Oh, I don't know about the whole plant. I think 2026. So 2026 is when the plant would be operational. I believe that's the same for
Right.
the whole.
The track right now is to bid the project in April, May timeframe with a 18 to 24 months construction period.
And then also what we're working on is the Western Intake Partnership. So another 6 million gallons a day out of Jordan Lake with the Western Intake Partnership. That's not expected to be operational until 2030. And so right now we have a big or a relatively large gap in demand. Without the water line from Sanford, we'd have a big gap in demand for water until 2030 when the Western Intake Partnership opens. And right now we're not fully participating in that. We're taking the option to have delayed payments on the Western Intake Partnership to always figure out the financing of that. But so we have a plan now for 11 million gallons of water treatment by 2030 in the town of Pittsburgh. Go.
Can I add?
Yeah.
So in talking about capacity and the 2/3, 1/3 split. Last week, I met with the folks at Chatham Park Investors. And I mentioned that there's been a lot of discussion about that 2/3, 1/3 split. And the fact that there's a very negligible gain for Pittsburgh. And then I told them that I thought that as a result of any deal that we're going to do, there needs to be more capacity for this town. And the simple answer was, we just need to ask and talk about it. And they seem very open to doing a deal that includes more capacity for us. I think we just need to keep talking and communicating and figuring it out. But I do think there's room for us to gain.
Absolutely. And they've said that meetings with Hazen and Kent and the mayor. And I mean, they've said that for sure. If you want to go back to the water.
And I'm sorry, but that was the first time I'd heard.
Okay. No, yeah, no problem. Or sorry, the sewer graph. And that's really what this represents. And that's the possibility for growth outside of the Chatham Park PDD in 2024 is that we would have plans for additional capacity, and Chatham Park has said that they're willing then to change that agreement that essentially limits the town to 750,000 gallons. Because the town of Pittsburgh right now, if you want to go back one more, actually, we don't have a plan for more capacity in the town of Pittsburgh. So we don't really have anything to bargain with at the table for more capacity. But once we merge, then all that capacity kind of goes into one bucket, and then people can use that bucket at a different timeline. So that the merger really opens up the possibility for development outside of the Chatham Park PDD in 2024 and going forward. Without the merger, we don't have a plan outside of the PDD.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. That's something they've committed to, that if we have a plan, then we can work together, on a plan going forward. All right, so water capacity looks, really similar. We're in better shape in water for sure. But with the merger, we would stay ahead of the water capacity with the 3 million gallon line from Sanford via VinFast. The Western Intake Partnership would open in 2030, and then we also still retain, or it would be Sanford at this point, but they would retain the option to expand the Haw River plant in Pittsburgh from 2 million gallons to 6 million gallons a day. It actually could go from 2 to 4, 2 to 6, 2 to 8. But I think most of the projections and reports we've seen have shown doing that to 6 million gallons a day based on flow in the Haw and what that's made up of and things like that. It was also talked about back in I think 2018, and then about doing the Pittsburgh plant expansion first as a stopgap for the Western Intake Partnership. But without having started on it at this point, we wouldn't be able to design and build that additional capacity in time to meet the demand before the Western Intake Partnership opens. The other advantage of the line from Sanford is that it helps with the interbasin transfer. So if we're going to send 2 million gallons of sewer down and then bring 3 million gallons of water back, then we can send the additional 3 million gallons down, expand that Forcemain from 2 to 5 million. So the water coming back from Sanford helps us a lot on the sewer capacity side as well. So there's a lot working together here. Any questions on the water side? All right.
Yeah. I'm not understanding why we still wouldn't want to have our plant expanded sooner than later.
I think, that's a it's a decision that we could make, but at this point, if we do, the 3 million gallons from Sanford helps with the wastewater also. And then we've got 6 million gallons on the way from the Western Intake Partnership. So assuming we continue in that, we would be pretty far above the projections by 2030 of need. So I think we should absolutely start working on design for that, or it's really Sanford's option at that point as an option. And the other thing about this is once we, 2035 is not the end. This is to get us capacity in the near term. And then we need to think about what our capacity needs are in 2050, 2060, 2100 or whatever you say that, I don't know. And start planning for that and how we're going to meet those capacity needs too. So I don't think it's not off the table at all. But if we add that capacity, say between, if we started today, we could add that capacity between the Sanford line and the Western Intake Partnership, but we'd be spending money to increase capacity over our projections at that point. So just to highlight a little bit what we have the opportunity for, we have some opportunity in 2024 for about 2.5 million gallons of sewer treatment capacity. By 2026, if we merge, we could have 5 million gallons of water treatment and 5.5 million gallons of sewer treatment available in the town of Pittsboro. And then go ahead, Colby. And by 2035, we could have 15 million gallons of water treatment capacity and 8.22 million gallons of sewer capacity available for the town of Pittsboro. We'll have to decide how that's allocated, where that goes and things like that. And then, 8.22 is probably enough till 2040, 2050, something like that. But, we would immediately need to start working with Sanford on where does the next 10 million gallons of sewer come from, 10 million gallons of water come from. But at some point too, that the sewer treatment abilities are, technology is going to increase reuse ability. I think some of the demand will slow down a little bit, not exactly track development as technology increases and becomes more economical. But this is not the merger is not something to do and then set back. We need to do the merger and then continue to work on that generational capacity. And then next slide. So just we're going to get the Freese and Nichols report on December 13th. They're going to present that to us. This is my impression of what it will look like. No numbers on here, no dates, no dollars, but right now that initial green line does represent our water and sewer rates. Recently, where they were flat for a while, we had to do a big increase because of the GAC project. We had to do a relatively large increase this year also. I expect that those water and sewer rate increases will continue on an upward trend into the future, and that just because of what we would need to do, and also because the state would mandate that as a part of our distress utility plan. So if we merge, that's the green line. Our rates, our water and sewer rates are still going to continue to increase as the cost of everything increases over time. They would increase less with a merger than they would have to increase without a merger. And then that purple line is Sanford water and sewer rates. So when we merge, they do have lower rates than us right now. When we merge, our rates are not going to be the same, likely. But there will be a point in time based on how much debt we have going into it, based on all these, cost of expansion plans and things like that, where we would have the same rate as the Sanford customers. And that would be part of what we would work out in the deal, is how long until the rates are the same for Pittsboro and Sanford customers. And then it would continue like that going forward. The way that we do this is by increasing the system development fee for developers. So developers and new development would pay for the majority of the cost of these improvements through increased system development fees. And then we can limit the increase of rates for Pittsboro residents going forward, and for Sanford residents also, because they don't want to see their rates going up either. So don't hold me to these curves or these things like that. But this is my impression of what the report from Freeze and Nichols will be, and it will have actual numbers on it and dates and timelines and things like that. And Kent will get more into the numbers and things here, but this is the rate reason of why we need to merge also.
So previously, I'd heard speculation that they legally couldn't charge us anything different from what they charge their own ratepayers.
There's a few different ways that this has happened. So some counter, Hazen, why don't you take?
So it is a question, and I think it's the advice we're getting from the attorneys, that if you don't own, as I understand, you don't own the facility. And
That's system development fees.
Previously, when Mr. Kennedy was briefing us on this, there was speculation that they could not charge us anything different from what they charge their own ratepayers, that we would receive the same rate as them.
I'm not sure. I do know that some counties have gone to districts. So I think that is going to be part of the details of how does all this work. I think we got the sewer capacity development charges that we got to figure out. Some people charged by meter size. So we don't have clear answers. So there are some things that are not clear yet. I did want, before we do this, I did want to kind of add to Commissioner Shipp's presentation. Can you go back to the water? We showed we're going up to 15 million. So you see 2026, I think kind of another question is why are we showing 2 million gallons, and then we're going to Sanford, and then we're going to Western intake, and then we're going to Hall River. Like, why is it that sequence? Now, as far as I'm concerned, the Western intake partnership in the Hall River, that's a judgment call. But what's important about that 3 million gallons from Sanford in water is because, and if somebody will go to the sewer, the same slide that shows you the sewer. There it is. So it's sewer is the problem. Sewer is the bigger problem. We're kind of surrounded by water in some ways, but the sewers is what's going to limit us. As the town grows and Chatham Park grows, we're going to run out of 2 million gallons of sewer. And so that's why the 2026, because what happens is the water, we could get water from someone else, but we got to have the sewer capacity, and that's got 3 million gallons in there, and that's an interbasin transfer. So we're getting more sewer capacity from Sanford. We got to take water back from them to not violate the interbasin transfer. So that's the value of this sequence. But as far as the other two water sources, those are maybe interchangeable.
And John, on the rate question too, I think most of the regionalizations that Wake County has done, there has been a period of time as a part of that agreement where the rates are higher in the joining municipality, and it's based on how much debt they have. So right now we don't have much debt, but we're about to take on fairly significant debt with these projects, and so that would all be part of the analysis that Freeze and Nichols is doing. So there's, and I'm certainly don't know the legal side of it, but there's a few different ways those arrangements have been done, and they have included a time period where there's different rates or different districts. I think Johnson County does different districts and continues on with separate rates and system development things and things like that. I will say that, when we met with Sanford, their goal is to have the same rates also, but there's a realization that it will be a period of time until we can accomplish that.
essentially amortizing the cost.
Right.
So if you want to jump to the other presentation and just go to the last slide. I think will be, so obviously that's a great summary overview of kind of, you know, what we're facing going forward in the next coming years and coming months for that matter. Of course, you know, what does that mean? There's choices, there's decisions for you to make, and then what it will come down to is, you know, there will be projects. There will be projects that you know, will make all of this happen. So sometimes it helps me to kind of just visualize some of the projects that we're talking about that would kind of come together to create this vision that Commissioner Shipp has talked about. So on your screen, we just talked about where some of these are. So by number, the number 5 bright green line there is the Forcemain route. So that is that's the 2 million gallon Forcemain and Plat conversion project that we'll be talking in some more detail about just a little bit later. If you go down toward the bottom of the screen, item 1, that's where this project for expansion of capacity with Sanford starts. That is the location of their water treatment plant. As has been mentioned, they are in design. They are 75% through design of expanding their plant from 18 or 12 MGD up to 30 MGD. And that is a coalition project as well, a regional project as well, but between Sanford, Pittsboro, Fuquay Varina, and Holly Springs. Project 2, 3, and 4 would all combine to essentially to deliver the water eventually to Pittsboro proper. Project 2 and at least part of Project 3 are what is being called Project Blue, or the project to deliver water to the mega site, and with intention to extend that project northwest of Highway 1. And then the remainder of Project 3 and Project 4 would be the project to extend the water from that point in the Moncure area into Pittsboro at a transition point that is not quite determined as of yet. This depicts the project coming all the way into kind of the 87 Sanford Road kind of intersection. Most likely, I mean, there are several development projects that will most likely shorten that length. So that is in our favor as well. But so 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the projects that would be combined to bring the water from Sanford into Pittsboro proper. Then some of the other projects that have been mentioned, the Western Intake Partnership Project, the blue dot there by number 6 is the proposed intake for the Western Intake Partners at near Vista Point on Jordan Lake. And then 6 is one probably the most likely option for that water being transmitted into Pittsboro, most likely connecting around Hanks Chapel or Chatham Parkway, somewhere in that vicinity. So I wanted to review that, just to kind of give you just kind of a graphical, you know, kind of discussion of these projects that we've been talking about. as we know, as we talked about, they are each very expensive projects, but they are very important projects. And so, that at the staff level, we are working with the different partnerships, and working with Sanford, working with the Western Intake Partners, working with the Sanford Water Coalition, to kind of to maintain our presence and our involvement in these projects, so that we have these options to create this vision for water and sewer that is so much needed, presently and certainly into the future. I think in terms of, particularly talking about sewer, we need to kind of visualize, okay, the service area. What is the service area? I think we kind of generally know, but I think it's important. And Kobe, if you could kind of back in the slides to the sewer service area slide. Okay, so and of course the sewer service area and the water service area, for the most part, mirror or kind of coincide with each other. But so this shows you that we have at least our sewer service area that we have established up to now is large. You can see from this map that there's a lot of this area that is not currently serviced by sewer facilities, lines, pump stations, etc. So I bring that up to talk about another important part of all of this that staff is focused on is, as we are working toward the merger, working toward some of these major project solutions, we are continuing. It's important to continue to study and plan for our system as it lives today. To think about what is needed, maintenance wise, conditioning wise for our system, because with the merger, it's going to be phased in over a period of time. So we're going to need to continue to maintain our system. So that's where it's also important to think about our service area. We have a grant to do a wastewater master plan that will be advancing that plan in 2023. That's important for a number of reasons specific to tonight's discussion. We need to understand what is our ultimate sewer demand, or what do we estimate, analyze? It's our ultimate future sewer demand. So that's one area where we're continuing to work on our current system. Certainly the I&I has been talked about a number of times. That's another area where we have significant plans going into 2023 to work on our system, to make repairs. We received again a grant for $4.5 million to do that work. And so those things are good things that we're doing that are benefit us now, and they're going to benefit us with the merger. As we get into merger discussions, I think it's going to be important for the city of Sanford to understand and to see see the actual work that we're doing to maintain and improve the system that would be merged with them going into the future. Look, Kobe, go to the Sanford project slide. Back one. So certainly one of the projects that, is in this vision, and that's important for the merger as well, is the Forcemain project. As you know, we did recently receive an open bids for two contract related to that Forcemain. We did that back on last Tuesday. We were pleased with the participation that we received from the contracting community. We received 4 bids for both contracts. The Wooten Company has provided a bid tabulation, for both contracts. So contract one is the work at the wastewater treatment plant to basically convert that plant to a equalization station and a lift station basically to collect and transmit the and pump the wastewater to Sanford. So as I said, there were 4 bids for that contract. The low base bid for that contract was $15,481,000. And then also we received 4 bids for contract 2, which is for the actual Forcemain, the line work to get down to Sanford. And the low base bid for that contract was $39,588,650. So putting those two together, which is necessary to build the project, brings us to a total of just over $55 million. To construct those 2 projects. At current time, the Wooten Company and staff are, examining the plans and specifications and the bid to determine, identify potential value engineering or cost savings that could be realized. When you have a low bid environment, we must negotiate in good faith with the low bidder if we are to negotiate that bid. That is a quite challenging number for sure. However, I think the fortunate side for us is that we have proposed development that gives us a pathway combined with the grants that we have applied for and the loan that we have received to be able to move forward with the project. So at this point, that is our intent, is to find a way through those approaches to be able to move forward with the project. We did anticipating a decision on our grant in January or early February. We did hold the bids for 90 days, or require the contractor to hold the bids for 90 days, giving us time to get at least a preliminary decision on our grant so that we can kind of see where we stand and how much gap that we need to make up for the Forcemain project. So, I think, clearly, we need probably in the next 90 days, we need to identify financing strategy for the Forcemain project, the Sanford projects, which would be the water treatment plant expansion with a current estimate of 37 million, and the transmission main project with a current estimate of $58 million, for which we have a grant application with potential for $30 million. So there's some very big numbers. I mean, very challenging, but I think the good thing for us is that we have the opportunity to, realize all these projects, but we certainly need a financing plan in a short period of time.
So question on the Forcemain, back when Wooten was here, June 27th to give us an update on the project. It wasn't bid at the time. And at the time, they said our loan limit right now is 26.5 million. At the time, they said they expected the cost to be over 30 million. That's what my note says. I don't know how precise that was, but certainly there's a lot of numbers over 30 million, but I took that to mean about 30 million, but over 30 million. I'm very interested to hear from their professional opinion, how it went from about 30 million and 30 million last year. And then, we made some value engineering options in there and shortened it also. So how it went up, over $25 million in a year, and how they weren't aware of that potential in June. That would seem to mean that the cost went up $25 million since July or since June, which just doesn't seem correct. So I'm very curious to hear that from them. You'll see their bid leveling and that, but we can add that to the list of answers we need from Wooten Corporation, I guess.
Yeah, there's certainly, and to your point, I recall a estimate in the range of 34 to 36 million, maybe, that they had communicated most recently. And so, yeah, that certainly follow-up work that staff will do with the Wooten Company. But they have not provided a official response to that. So
That's something we'll demand of them.
Can you back up? Because after you covered contract 1 and contract 2, you mentioned some other large figures, but I didn't catch what those were about.
sure. So that's related to the projects to bring water from Sanford. So there's a project to expand their treatment plants. Our cost share is currently estimated at 37 million. And then there is the transmission system to bring that water up to Pittsboro. That is currently estimated at 58 million, with a grant application with a potential of up to 30 million.
Okay, what is the name of their treatment plant?
Big
Not the
Buffalo.
Buffalo, that's their sewer treatment plant.
I think it's the Sanford water.
If we're gonna
plant.
help pay for expanding, I'd like to know what it's called.
It's the Sanford water plant.
The Sanford water plant, okay. Expansion of Sanford water plant, and again, that was how much?
37.
Our share,
Right.
That's for our 3 million gallons.
37 million. And the transmission line again is
58 million.
58 million.
And that's from the Moncure mega site to Pittsburgh, correct?
That the 58 million is to go from Sanford's water plant.
Right.
To the VinFast site and then up to Pittsburgh. That's the current estimate. The portion that would be just related to Pittsboro, Friesen Nichols estimates at about 30 million.
Oh, so we don't have to cover the whole cost of the 58.
Is that the third?
Correct.
And there's grants out there.
Right.
Right, for a $15 million grant to us, and then another $15 million if we merge. So in theory, all these estimates are right, that would pay for our $30 million share of the water transmission to us. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, obviously with any of these things there, you have to make, projections. But yes, that is right.
Okay, $15 million grant for the transmission line of the water from Sanford. Plus a $15 million grant for when we merge. Or is it if we merge or upon the merger?
Well, I understand it, it's if we don't merge, $15 million.
Right. Yeah, okay.
And those aren't automatic, of course, but they are for distressed utilities. So it's 15 million to help become undistressed as a utility because of our status as a distressed
Mhm.
utility. And then 15 additional million if you regionalize as a part of your way out of distress. So that's not, those numbers happen to align, 30 million happens to align with the cost of the water transmission line. But, we could use those funds if we receive them for anything related to the regionalization.
But there wouldn't be anything more for our share in the expansion of the Sanford treatment plant.
No, but I'm saying the money is not specific to a transmission line. We can use it for, the Sanford Forcemain if we regionalize. But, and then there's potentially other opportunities that we could, other things we could apply for. Those two are specific to being a distressed utility. So that designation that we gained this summer is worth at least 30 million, we think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's
Okay. I'm
other
remembering now.
grants out there that, we could potentially get for these projects or appropriations or all of these things. We should be calling all of our friends.
And that 15 million is a
about-
maximum from the distress utility program.
Correct.
Right.
So we'd cap out.
Yes. So
We would have
that's
to
my
seek
point. It's
other
not
grants from elsewhere.
project specific necessarily. That is for costs related to being
Got it.
distressed and regionalized.
And it might also entail going back to our friends at the House and Senate for
Certainly.
earmarks.
Certainly.
Go back to another, I think something you were saying. So for the water plant expansion, the 37 million is a figure based on 60% design. The 90% design is due in December. So we anticipate a new estimate. I will say, typically, the greatest increase in the estimate is seen between the 30% design and the 60%.
Okay. So hopefully it'll be a marginal increase, if at all. Okay. Thank you, Kent.
I do have one question. That's in reference to the reuse water. What's going on with that? Would that be something that the current wastewater plant would continue to do? Or what do you foresee that happening?
I mean, the current arrangement, I think this was memorialized in the NPDES permits that were issued last year, is that reuse water from the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center can be used to meet our demand, our contract with 3M.
Okay,
As far as that part of it is concerned. Now, as far as expansion of a reuse water program, there's been some discussion kind of around the edges, so to speak. However, we still have not discussed a comprehensive, water reuse plan.
okay,
And that's what goes into some of the calculations of water use being higher than sewer need in the future.
Mhm.
Is we hope to find more and more uses for reuse water, and not need that discharge,
Mhm.
for all of our water needs.
Okay.
Can I have one question? And you may have went over it, but on the 55 million Forcemain bid, do we have any idea how much more it would be if to go to 4 to 5 million gallons? How much more cost that would be? I mean, the 2 million gallons, we're gonna be out of sewer quickly. Does this 55 million, does it give us an idea of what it's gonna take more to go to 4 million?
Probably no, just because I think the project to increase the, the hydraulics is a different type of project that would be difficult to kind of try to extract from these bids what that might translate to, but we can certainly start to get an answer to that and probably get one fairly quickly.
But our in-ground pipe would be fine, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, I think that's critical too, as a part of this project, you get a second look and a third look and make sure that what we're putting in the ground right now will do 5 million gallons, because that's what all of these plans hinge on. And I think that, an online calculator will tell you that it will, but it depends on the construction and very specific things about that line. So as I would certainly like someone to look over the shoulder of Wooten and make sure that, this will do that 5 million gallons that all of this hinges on.
Do I remember
I guess
that,
was answer, yeah, I see what you're saying.
do I remember that the type of pipe was changed in this bid round from ductile to,
Yes, the bid last essentially a year ago, the line was majority ductile iron pipe. And this bid, it was a change to C900 PVC with an alternate bid price for ductile iron, which to fill in that blank, the alternate was about a $3.2 million add to go to ductile iron. So obviously that would not be an alternate we would take. But you're
I think
correct.
it was originally spec'd PVC, and then we added the alternate thinking that ductile iron might be cheaper without the cost star, and then it ended up that it is not. So it would be, we would stay with PVC. And as another, I think this was sent out, or maybe saw it in the Business Journal, but as another data point, the town of Clayton just agreed to build a 6 million gallon treatment plant at $260 million. So little over $43 million per million gallon of sewer treatment is what Clayton just agreed to, in 260 overall.
So do we have insights into the contract between Chatham Park Investors and the city of Sanford as regards the water that is to be brought back to town?
I've not seen any details of that, only that general discussion.
So they said, Sanford said last week, there's no contract. There's what they did this spring was sort of agree to talk to Chatham Park about 3 million gallons of water and sewer, but there's no firm agreement with them. I think it's maybe a little more firm than with us, but like it's not, there's no contract in place. There's just a resolution about that. And I'll say too that Chatham Park has said repeatedly they don't wish to do that. They want us to provide utilities, and do that. But it's just a hedge of their bets, essentially, that if we're not able to do something, they still will to provide utilities for that project. But it's not their preference for sure.
So the capacity that we've agreed with Sanford, we're essentially buying with our share of the expansion of their Sanford water treatment plant is still owned by us.
I'm not sure.
I think it's owned by them. We're buying our share we're paying our share as a buy-in. Right?
The Sanford water plant expansion project contemplates Pittsburgh standing by Sun. Merger is separate discussion.
Yes.
And everything is going on parallel tracks.
Right.
This is the problem. You know, you're on the train, but you're on several trains at the same time.
Yes. And so back to the question, we have previously agreed with Sanford that we're going to, in fact, I think we made a down payment of sorts on expansion of their water treatment plant to the extent that we paid towards design fees. Is that correct recollection?
Yes.
And so the resulting, excuse me, financed by Chatham Park. And so the resulting capacity for that would still be resulting capacity for the expansion of the Sanford water treatment plant.
We play ball. Just play.
Right. Yeah.
At a cost of 37.
Got it.
That's a decision we still have to make. So if we decide not to do that, the design money is gone. That Chatham
Right.
Park has
Yeah.
loaned to us.
Well, I think we're committed to it because we need the sewer capacity.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that go in together and a lot of these things, it's. You know, if we agree to build a force main at 57 million and we agree to do the water line at, you know, plan expansion 43 million. Obviously, you know, we don't have much debt in our enterprise fund now. That would significantly add to our debt in the enterprise fund, which would, you know, change the sliders and the calculation
Yeah.
that Friesen Nichols is working on.
I'm just remembering a presentation from an engineering firm, maybe it was financial consultants that told us that we would see lower water bills, excuse me, lower sewer bills with this expansion of the sewer treatment Sanford Forcemain project. But that's water under the bridge.
Well, and that is the, what's that study? Davenport study.
Thank you.
But what that contemplated was a wholesale agreement with Sanford and then reselling that at a higher rate. So I think that is, I mean, I think it's still valid. And that goes into the calculation of with the merger as well. But like if we wanted to do only that and, you know, purchase at a wholesale rate and resell at a different rate, those, I know it talked about, you know, millions or tens of millions in profit. I think that that's still true, but that is just, that doesn't provide capacity for Pittsburgh. So, you know, we could become a utility provider for the Chatham Park PDD and potentially make money off of that, but we still don't have any capacity for the rest of Pittsburgh. And it'll take a while to build that up.
Yeah.
And certainly didn't anticipate the cost of 57 million. I think the cost at that time was 18 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So. And I think just another concept, another point we've heard, like we're working on the future land use plan update. There's community meetings tomorrow from 3 to 6 and 7 to some other times. There's 2 community meetings tomorrow. There's surveys out right now. And I've heard, you know, some comments about that of why are we doing this? We don't have sewer capacity. The whole point of that and the timing of that is imagining that we do have sewer capacity. We, particularly for me, the future land use plan update has been a goal since before I was on this board. But, you know, Chris intentionally did not put that contract out that we had approved until we had said back in May in principle that we agreed, you know, to look at this merger because that is our way to capacity and, you know, our way out of the sewer capacity issue. So then we signed the contract. We're working on the future land use plan update. The idea is to work on that future land use plan update, imagining that we do have sewer. Thank you, Janie. 3 to 4:30 and 6 to 7:30 tomorrow at the old ag building, just off the circle. So we need to continue to proceed in that this will work out. And if we don't merge, then we can change the whole future land use plan to 5 acres with a septic or 10 acres with a septic or something like that. But, you know, that's the reason of the timing, even though we don't have that plan yet. That's the That's the hope of the plan, updating that future land use plan.
Can you clarify the meeting location? Did you say it's somewhere else other than here?
It's the old ag building
That's a
behind
good
the
distinction.
county, old ag auditorium, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You can park in the county's parking lot for the mod and then go there.
Cam, Jim?
So one of the purposes, besides just going over all this complicated model, right, but is to get any concerns or questions that the board has, so we can continue to try to work and give you guys answers. But here's some of the things I've written down. We got to work on the financing plan for the person, right? I think the question came up about the bid going up, basically somewhere around $25 million. Within less of a June before, kind of what's the story behind that? The reuse of water, the expanding, there's a 3M on that. I think Chris did a question, taught me the impression recently. The cost to go from the 2 million gallon a day sewer line to 5 million, making sure this line is adequate. Can we get some kind of estimate for holding basins? I think we've talked about in the past, keeping town staff, making sure, how do we keep town staff whole? I think, because what I would recommend is that, and all these are answerable questions, right? But I would like to see us begin to talk to Sanford about, look, we are really, really interested in this merger, and we want to start working on the details and seeing maybe there's a variety of options to go down, but I think we need, meat on the bones instead of talk, really, because we're running out of time, because they want to answer on the water expansion in December. We're gonna have information about whether or not we get grants in January. We want to go out to bid on the water in April or May. So really, time is of the essence. But the intention is we don't want to get ahead of the board, but we want to make sure we're moving together as a team, and staff isn't going in one direction, the board wants to go in another direction, just based on body language and nods of the head. It seems like the board is comfortable with us continuing to pursue with Sanford this merger option. Now, we're going to get more information in at the December 13th meeting. It'll be a special meeting, same place, probably similar format, talk about what results they have. But I guess we're looking for affirmation. The board is comfortable with us taking this next step and trying to have some really serious talks with Sam.
Right.
Yes.
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 All in favor, nod your head.
Yes.
Yes.
So there are other questions and issues as well. Hayes.
Yes.
For the first time, I've heard tonight, what sounds like actual work done in the public domain from Sanford's side on GAC. And if there's public documents, we need them.
Yeah, they're coming.
And we need the public to know about them here in Pittsburgh. We need the newspaper to report on them.
So
We need baseline data on their pollutants. What's their pollutant profile? So, we need buy-in from the public to commit to this merger. And what we know so far is there's one data point on PFAS that looks worse than worse than our town water. That's the rumor.
Well, I think
So-
we're going to see some data on that. Several of us went to Sanford last week and brought that very thing up. And there is more than one study, and we've been promised to have the data in hand.
Wonderful.
And I did realize too, when I was going back to get these numbers, so that the Freeze and Nichols report in, I think, April 2021 to date, they presented to us about some of these options. It does say in there in a few locations that their plant expansion will have GAC treatment. So
Great.
that wasn't like top of our mind, or that wasn't the point of that presentation at the time, but
Yeah.
in our presentation from Friesen Nichols in last April, I believe, it did confirm that they'll have that treatment. It didn't have all the numbers, currently in the water and stuff, but
They have gone as far as this last cost estimate update. They have broken down the cost for each partner between the Sanford's existing plant versus the expansion. So the element of the cost does reflect the GAC being included in the project.
Good.
They also indicated that they were going to be installing UV for the whatever 1,4-dioxane happened to come downstream, but that they had very minor. They'd had non-detects on 1,4-dioxane, unlike our situation, and so but they were going to hedge the bet by installing UV as well as the GAC.
I think they said they were gonna leave room for expansion for it, once it was defined.
Oh,
that's right. They're
yes,
doing the
that's
same
right.
as us.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
designing the plant to have the ability to install it later,
Yeah.
but they're not installing it.
Okay.
It's not a part of this project.
Okay. So we're gonna get the rate study soon. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that. And I guess that will give us the basis for a plan. Hopefully to come to an agreement with Sanford about a plan for rate setting in future. I think we need to talk to our constituents and be able to give them some assurance as to what impact or what input we will have, if any, on future rate setting. I guess that's a huge open question mark, because what we've heard so far is they don't want to have an OWASA style water and sewer authority. They want it to be entirely controlled by Sanford, and so I think we need to come to terms about that. Anyone has thoughts on that?
What I would say is, I think there may be options on how, because I have a limited lens. Last 20 years, I've not worked in water and sewer, but the system development fees or meter sizes fees, and when you look at Chatham Park and all those, not only 27,000 homes, there's 22 million square feet of non-residential development.
Commercial.
A lot of those are going to have water meters, and the question is, what can we charge that can recoup some of our capital costs?
Hey, Zen,
Also make sure we
Can you get up in the mic? They're saying that it's hard to hear you.
Might not even be on.
Yeah. No, that's why.
Maybe a dead battery.
What would you like me to do? I don't know if it's public purview.
I think it'd be useful.
Yeah, yes, why don't you
Okay, so I think one of the things we need to make sure we're like, in my limited, view of this is system development fees or meter size charges can be significant when you have such a big development close by. And then how can that finance some of these capital costs? I think that's going to be a really important question, because I can see where our public is going to have a certain appetite for rate increases, right? Some reasonable, rational rate increase will probably make sense. There's a tipping point somewhere in there. And my hope is that we can use some of these one-time charges for water and sewer capacity to offset the rates. But, we'll rely on Friesen Nichols to help us out there.
Thank you, Hazen. That is helpful. I think for the folks who actually vote us in, the concern is those annual rate increases that they've suffered for the past 3 years. So, I think we need to have a plan for that. Whether or not Sanford has a plan, And is our plan just to throw ourselves at the mercy of Sanford? I mean, that doesn't sound very good. If we're giving up all of our infrastructure and then we don't have any control or say on future rate setting, I hope we don't go there. And I'd like to learn more about how we're going to plan for these capacity expansions. Kent, as you pointed out on the map, so much of our ETJ is not served. There's no plan for them to be served in future. So after the merger, how will that unfold?
Right, I mean, I think, having the plan, having the wastewater master plan will be an important part of that, but as you're where you're going is that doesn't get it done. It identifies what needs to be done, right?
Mm-hmm. And then it's up to a different governing body. Sanford's town board. Is that right? Post-merger?
I think it's all, we don't know the details of the merger. I don't, there's a lot of folks have done this. I know in Mecklenburg County, these issues that you're talking about were non-issues. Now, I don't know why, but, so I think all this can be addressed. We can figure it out. I think there's potential for separate water and sewer district. So I think we should just be able to say, let's figure this out and then move forward. And we have certain interests we need to protect, right? And Sanford's got interests they need to protect. And I think ultimately it's in the best interest of the region. The state understands this. That's what y'all went to, is that distress. It's really like small communities probably need to get out of the water and sewer business long term. And I think it's smart for us to be ahead of the curve with all the development here, not only adjacent to us, but this region is exploding. We need to be part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we talked last week, some of our meetings last week about, one of the complexities about this whole initiative is the details. I know, particularly in my business, we like to have details and react and respond to them. But I think where you're going is where we have to go, is thinking about what our interests are going to be, because we're not going to have the details first. We're going to get them second. But I think tonight we haven't made it a reality, but I think discussing some of these, specific projects and initiatives certainly makes it real. So.
And I don't know exactly how they do it either. Like Hazen said, Matthews grew over the last 20 years without utilities. The fastest growing communities in Wake and Johnson, they're growing like crazy. So we're not inventing the wheel here, and I don't think we need to reinvent it, but we need to understand how that works for those communities, and then make sure that it works for our situation too, because we have a unique situation. We all think we're unique too, but we have a unique situation here. And so how it works for us on those expansions and rates and all of those things.
But I think the business side of it is pretty easily explained, right? Once we know what the costs are, once we know what the costs are, we can figure out what I would call an amortization schedule, and then know when our ratepayers will come back in line with Sanford's ratepayers. I think there's plenty of precedent for that type of deal. But until we know what the costs are, we're just sort of sitting and waiting.
And there's certainly an incentive for us or Sanford, whoever that is, to increase the customers of your business, of your enterprise fund. So they're incentivized to do that in the future too. And, we obviously didn't talk about whether that's in Sanford proper or Pittsburgh or, wherever else, but they have an incentive in having more customers and more ratepayers in the future also.
Yep. But there may be incentives to have more ratepayers closer to their sewer plant.
Sure.
Not even in Chatham County. Not in Pittsburgh. So, and also I think that there's, as we've started to skirt around some of the conversations tonight, some very substantial questions about the scheduling of these transitions in order to take full advantage of our distressed utility condition, our status as a distressed utility. And how do we unwind that position while maximizing that opportunity? And at what point does the merger commence in relation to that and any projects that need to be contemplated, taking advantage of that status?
I mean, you're not looking for an answer. That's just.
No,
a
exactly.
Issue
That's
that's
a
like,
question needs to be answered. So, yeah. And I don't think it's a rhetorical question. I think it's
Yes.
It should be quantifiable. Yeah.
so.
I think, I mean, to the issue of the timing, Paul mentioned that a lot of these things are on what he called parallel track, which I think is a great way to describe it. I think it's possible and maybe likely we have the December work session that we may have a draft, at least of an ILA from Sanford for the water plant expansion deal.
Okay. Well, I'm very grateful for all this information. I've learned a lot tonight.
And I think another thing, like John specifically you talked about is a review of the agreement. And so we've got an agreement to get, a draft agreement together, of course, but I think it's important now to talk about who, or not now necessarily, but soon to talk about who is the appropriate people, entities to review that agreement from Pittsburgh's perspective, and when to get them engaged so that they don't slow down the process, but then when we hand them something to review,
Thank you.
they can review it quickly. Because I don't want to put a lot of time into putting this agreement together and then we hand it to someone that needs months to review it. We need to get, and whether that's School of Government resources, Triangle J resources, outside legal firms, whatever those are, maybe a combination of all of those. But I think it's important to identify and contemplate that so that we all feel good about it. And we of course have Freeze and Nichols engaged and, in other things too, like that when that agreement comes through, we have, minor comments to it because they've all been working together. And then we proceed with the agreement without delay, really, because we've had the right people involved at the right time through the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And Sanford let us know the other day that Freeze and Nichols will be making presentation to them on the 13th of December, as well as to us. So it will be very, very much in the public eye at that point. Are there additional questions, or shall we move to our next agenda item?
Just kind of like to clarify one more time. I think we've been working with Sanford a lot. The Forcemain has been in, worked for a lot of years. They're operating Chatham Park's Water Recovery Center. We're talking about the water line with them. So back in May, I think it was May, when we did the resolution to, a plan to make a plan, as I called it. And I think kind of recently in some of these discussions, we've been talking about that as dating. We're dating Sanford now. And what I think we're saying tonight is that we want to get engaged. And we don't know the wedding date. We don't know the cost, the band, the flowers, all of those things. But the next step onto that road of a much more formal agreement with them is that. So we're all shaking our heads to.
Such a romantic.
Hey, I don't know
Yes,
about sewer pipe. I guess I am.
yes. Because from what I'm looking, from what Mr. Hazen has indicated, he has different things to look at, and you all you have different things that we need to look at and discuss with Sanford as well. So certainly we do plan to go forward with that. From my understanding, in terms of the contract, there are other cities which have done this. So basically, I know the city of Roseville, and there are a lot of members of Triangle J who have done that. So certainly there are resources out there that could be able to review that contract.
Good.
We'll have a party later, I guess.
So thank you, Kent. We appreciate that very much. And Kyle. The next order of the work session would be with Heather Meacham, who's going to discuss with us office space for planning, engineering, and parks and recreation. So may we join with Heather? Very good. Thank you. Good evening, Heather.
Hi. So we have obviously been in conversations with for a while about the need for extra space. Our planning and engineering and parks departments have maxed out their space at their current location in Chatham Mills. For the last probably year, we have had there was some communication, with Tom Roberts about different options at Chatham Mills to expand there. I was not a part of those conversations. He was talking with Chris, and it was going back and forth. At this point, I have not. I've talked to Tom Roberts, and Kent and I met with him about different space needs, but nothing else has happened with it from as of right now. And we're sort of needing space sooner rather than later because we have 2 parks positions that are advertised and we have nowhere to put them. So we are looking to, so we were looking at different other options. And we looked at the Main Street station, which is very convenient because it's right down the street from Town Hall. They have very good parking. The space that we would be taking over would be where the hospice is currently, on the 2nd floor of the first building closest to the street. And it would be almost that entire 2nd floor. There is about 3 offices that are currently occupied by another group. And it's about 3,600 square feet, which is what we would be taking over. And it is already set up as office space. We have toured, Kent and I have toured that, and Katie has toured it as well. It would be a very nice space for planning, engineering, and parks. And it would have space there for Adam to move over from the water plant, and we would have some extra space there for future needs. So as of right now, we have Mr. Messick has been reviewing the contract, and we are hoping that we would sign that with your approval. Or once it's, once we've finished negotiating, sign that with your approval, and we would be looking to move in there February 1st.
Questions for Heather?
I just have one. Heather, does this mean all staff would be leaving Chatham Mills? Complete?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to keep everybody, together, and the space at the Main Street station would accommodate everybody. And it is it's easier access, from with customers and everybody. There's a lot of parking there. It's easier to find. So we would want to keep everybody together.
And how much remodeling would be
Yeah.
needed there?
Upfit costs?
There would be almost zero. The Heath is going to do a few, minor changes for us because there are some built-in desks and we're going to have some of those removed. But other than that, there's no changes that need to be made. It's in very good condition.
And Heather, I've seen advertised there that there's like an empty space at the front of that building. They're looking to get a bar or a restaurant into. So that would be under our space, correct?
That's correct. But as far as I'm aware, currently he does not have the sewer capacity for that.
I think we went over that already.
They already signed up for it.
It brings up the question of, about future expansion, or if there were to be a bar under the town offices or something like that. Is there potential to expand more there in the future, or have
Yes.
some input on those other tenants?
Yeah, well, we did not talk about input on other tenants, but we did talk about the potential for the town to need more space in the future, because there's also like the YMCA is there, and they are obviously going to be, moving to their new location in a few years. And so there would be also that space as well that is on the main level. So, because we did talk about the fact that, we don't quite know what we're doing yet with town hall, and if everybody at town hall needed to move out so that we could do renovations for the police department, there might be a need for, town hall admin people to move at some point. So we did talk to Heath about that, and he is open to that discussion, in the future.
Good. I think it'd be good if he'd be willing to give us sort of a right of first refusal on space as it comes up, so that we could. I don't think it's fair necessarily to have a say on future tenants, but if we could at least have a right of first refusal on space, to give us that opportunity.
Yeah, we can. I'm sure we can talk about that with him as we go through the contract.
Okay.
And one other question, Heather, I'm sorry. Have we spoken with the county on any of their existing buildings that in the future?
I have not spoken with them yet. Because I was looking for a more immediate need, since we currently need space like right now. And I know that the locations that we've talked about in the past, like the old ag building and stuff, those are going to need a lot more work to them before we can occupy them. But I haven't talked to anybody about, sort of at what point in the future those would be available to us.
And Heather, what sorts of terms have you discussed with Main Street Station so far?
So currently he's asking for a 5-year lease. And it is $24 per square foot.
Yeah.
And there is a yearly, increase to that. And that increase is something that he had a calculation in there. That's something that we're discussing. Mr. Messick was asked, trying to see if we could simplify the sort of inflationary increase that he has in the contract.
That's inclusive of utilities.
What's the net increase?
He had a 4% floor plus some really complicated government factor system. I think 4% is simple enough.
4% per year? Mhm.
Any other questions for Heather Meacham? Thank you, Heather. We appreciate this information. I would note for people that have not been by town hall lately that there is a little construction project going on in what used to be our boardroom is now being divided into 3 offices. And the walls are up and it's going to be a very different flavor than it used to be for. So there'll be 3 offices. One of them will be a 2-person office, I believe, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
No.
No, it's so, Madam Mayor, the largest office is going to be for Jennifer Eeks, our HR director. And then the 2 smaller offices are for Crystal and Carrie will be moving back there. And then that will free up so by Jennifer moving, that frees back up the town manager office. And then the 2 front offices in the lobby will be, one might be open as sort of a sort of floating office for anybody that just needs space. And also there will be space there for Colby to have some space in the office as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think she'd like some direction as to whether to continue to proceed to negotiate with the.
Would the board like to give assurances to Heather Meacham that her progress forward on this was of approval?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion. Oh, go ahead.
That sounds like you're going to do the right thing.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the interim town manager and town attorney to negotiate and sign the lease agreement with Main Street Station, Pittsburgh.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor,
Discussion?
discussion?
Thank you. Thank you very much for making the motion. I did have some other thoughts that I wanted to share. While I'm a little bit surprised by the revelation of the pricing, I wasn't even aware we were paying $21 a square foot, and $24 a square foot sounds good, especially if it's including utilities. I was definitely surprised by the other figure for the other opportunity. Nevertheless, I think in terms of town's footprint, if you will, the town government footprint in our community has me still very curious to learn more about what's the name of the space? The space at the Matisse Clinic. And I want to encourage the effort to take care of immediate needs while also continuing to demonstrate interest in the development of downtown. Do others feel similarly?
I did until I went to view the Matisse Clinic property with some others. It would take a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of cost, and a tremendous amount of time. And the town would never own that building because the current owner has absolutely no intention of selling it. He really wishes for it to become an income stream for him. So were there others that toured the building that had similar feelings?
Yeah, I did. I toured the building, and it does need extensive renovation, and it would be very costly. I would hope that it would ultimately be able to be done, but I think in reference to the town doing it, it would be extensive right now.
But John, I think your point is good about investing in downtown. And I think, what we know about that building is it requires a outsized investment for the size of it. That's unlikely to happen by someone privately. So I think that is part of where we might decide as a town, but eventually or something that's an investment we want to make in downtown. To have a historic structure down there that is a useful structure, and that the cost of it and the nature of it may require that's something that we invest in, even though it's not a good cost per square foot necessarily at the end of the day, but I'm not sure anybody else would take that leap either.
Are you
So,
saying we would subsidize his redevelopment of that building?
I don't have any idea. But I think that it's not, for the reasons that we're doing something different immediately, other people would also do something different immediately. And if it's a priority for investment or for maintaining that building, it's going to take more than the market to do that.
I think that's right. I think you've encapsulated it very well, Commissioner Shipp, and I appreciate those thoughts. And so for that reason, I was wondering about a shorter term. But again, I don't want to interrupt staff's efforts here. I think it's very clear this is the best course of action for our immediate needs. And it's also very clear that this is a pent up need. It's an urgent need. So I support the motion and we'll call the question.
Any further discussion? If not, then we'll proceed to vote on a motion, which, would you restate that? Ms. Baldwin?
Motion to authorize the interim town manager and town attorney to negotiate and sign the lease agreement with Main Street Station Pittsboro LLC.
Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next on our agenda is speaking again with Kent Jackson, designating Highway 87 as US 15501 truck route. So Kent, let us hear from you about what you're doing there.
So in October, maybe it was even September, we discussed the board's interest in trying to solve or impact the situation with trucks in the downtown. I think back then we maybe combined a couple of things that are somewhat independent, that being maybe future consideration of the routing of US 15501 with the near-term need for addressing the truck route. So in the past several weeks, our staff, primarily Morgan DeWitt, has discussed with the NCDOT division office, as well as the state traffic office, to get a resolution drafted that we feel meets the board's interest and intent related to the truck route downtown, and that is the resolution that is before you this evening. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. And was that in our packet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think my confusion when we talked about this last time was that the concept of moving 15501 to 87 wasn't in our packet prior to the meeting. So that was my confusion then. But really, when we said back when we talked about the acceleration of Chatham Parkway South about designating Chatham Parkway eventually as 15501, the purpose of that was to get truck traffic out of downtown. And the feeling at the time was that we didn't have that 87 was not an option for a truck route because of incorrect things that it turns out we've heard historically. So then it kind of came around of, well, let's move 15501 here and then move 15501 back over here. But to me, that wasn't our intention. Our intention was to have a truck route around Pittsboro, which means that we need to move 15501. And we think now that we can move 15501 to 87, down 64 to 87. So that accomplishes our goal. And I don't think that we need to move it again when Chatham Parkway goes through. Now, this is a request. So if this is not successful, then that would be our second second choice is to, continue doing that. And I think if this is successful, we probably need to go back and modify one of those agreements with DOT. But I think this would, and I've heard some of the concerns about changing people's addresses, one time or multiple times. But with this routing here, the yellow routing, none of the addresses in between there are 15501. They're all Sanford Road or Hillsborough Street. And
That's
then
correct.
technically Chapel Hill Street, but then it gets to Lowe's Drive and whatever up there. So I think this is a good option, and it doesn't impact people's addresses. And I wouldn't intend to move 15501 twice because this accomplishes the goal of, being able to restrict trucks from downtown and giving us more control over roads downtown for things like pedestrian improvements and festival closures and all of those things also, if it's not a state highway. So I view this as a one-time movement to accomplish those goals, and we wouldn't need to do it again later.
Right, I think you're correct. I think at the same time, I think that DOT has, through this process, they've clarified that while it's not, their preference to do it multiple times, it's not it's not an absolute should something change it.
Are there other questions regarding this? Has everyone read the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Bonnet. Is there further discussion on the resolution?
I do not have a discussion. I just have a concern, and that is in terms of the street itself. Because of course it will have to be expanded. So would Pittsburgh have to is Pittsburgh responsible for the cost of expanding that highway?
Yeah, we've not had any substantial discussions with DOT. I mean, the thing I can say is earlier this year, we made a request to DOT to upgrade the intersection of Sanford 87 Moncure Pittsburgh Road. Morgan, you may remember the name. There's a program, a local DOT program, projects that are well suited to be accelerated. So we did make that request of DOT earlier this year. I don't believe we've heard an update. So our thought there, it was not necessarily related to this. We weren't thinking about this at the time, but we do realize there's a lot of traffic pressure on that intersection. A lot of development planned at that intersection, and wanting to, to extent improve, modernize that intersection to add turning movements, widen the lanes, set it up for future pedestrian access. Morgan, is that pretty accurate for what?
Last we talked to DOT, they said that there was a right-of-way constraints to that intersection and they had to work through. So we had to proceed to respond.
Okay, yeah. That is most of my concern, as well as how close the homes are now currently to the street and how it's going to affect those homes. Those are my concerns. But definitely it does, the trucks, we do not want the trucks downtown if at all possible. So I guess this would be one of the only options at this particular point. But I do have those concerns.
All right. Is there further discussion? You've heard the motion. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Our next section of our work session is the countywide comprehensive transportation plan update. And Molly, I understand you are bringing us that tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everybody. Molly Boyle, Planning Project Manager. And to briefly summarize this item tonight, town staff has received a request from NCDOT and Triangle J Council of Governments to confirm if the town of Pittsboro supports a countywide comprehensive transportation plan update. A little bit of background on that, the NCDOT is currently working on a CTP amendment for Siler City and also Chatham County. And if they proceed with the amendment as it is, then that's going to require them to adopt 10-year-old data. And of course, also we in the town of Pittsboro, over a year ago, we requested a full update to our CTP. Our current CTP doesn't even reflect Chatham Park. So with all these jurisdictions needing better data, and of course, with the announcement of VinFast and Wolfspeed, the NCDOT wants to move forward with a countywide model and creating a new countywide transportation model. Right now, they're just wanting confirmation from all the parties that everyone's on board. So there's no formal discussion about timeline yet. There's obviously no details on the model yet because it doesn't exist. They just want to make sure that everybody's amenable before we move forward with those conversations. You'll note if you look at the memo, I wrote it as an information item. I incorrectly assumed that there was going to be a consent agenda. So if you want to direct staff to move forward with that, you would just need a motion directing staff to send confirmation to NCDOT and Triangle J that we're on board with that. And to clarify, they said an email is fine, so they're not requesting any kind of formal resolution of support or approval or anything. They literally said I could just send them an email and copy the town manager and or the board confirming support. So if you have any questions, I'll take those now.
Questions for Molly Boyle?
Thank you so much, Ms. Boyle. I am curious, of course, I'm strongly in support of this. And I hope the rest of the board is as well, but I am curious if we can get the prior item that we just discussed in consideration with this countywide CTP update. The flip side of that is traffic between the campsite and the tip site. I had previously been very concerned, as was Commissioner Shipp, about increase of traffic on Highway 87 at Al's Diner down to 902 and on to Sanford Road or 15501. But I'm now understanding that Highway 421 is to be widened. And I'm hopeful that that will alleviate much traffic from between the two cams, between the two mega sites. If we could get some reassurance of that.
Okay. I'm not sure at this juncture, but that's definitely something that I can get for the board.
That
Thank
is
you.
for sure. They're going to make 421 an interstate.
Yeah, it's just kind of 2 points of the same coin, two sides of the same coin. And then finally, I hope that we might, to the extent that this countywide plan looks at all inside of the towns or the town limits, I hope that some thought will be put into the complete streets treatment of Sanford Road. I mean, we know that we're already expecting NCDOT to widen Hillsborough Street. So north of town should be taken care of with a multi-use path and the sidewalk. But south of town will soon need that as soon as the age restricted community is built. What's the name of it?
The Del Webb.
Thank you, Del Webb. Yeah, so Sanford Road will need similar treatment to get into town on bicycle and pedestrian pathways.
Yes, sir. And we can include that information. And yeah, obviously, as part of the CTP update, one of the things that we'll need to be doing is identifying priorities for us as the town of Pittsboro. And that's definitely something that we can address with them. And obviously, Del Webb is a huge development. So that would be important to address transportation, multimodal transportation concerns, particularly around there.
Very good. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Further questions for Molly Boyle? If not, would someone care to make a motion as suggested by Molly that but that we send confirmation to DOT by email indicating a willingness to have the town comprehensive transportation plan joined with the other comprehensive plans.
So moved with the county effort. Mhm.
Motion made by Commissioner Bonnets. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Farrell. Any further discussion? Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. And lastly, we have a discussion of the Corbett Landing final plat extension request. Janie Phillips, you'll be joining us for that. Good evening, Janie.
Yes, good evening. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you have a memo and the letter of request from Project Bradshaw on behalf of Rexford Group. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm just here for any questions. They're requesting a year extension to submit their final plat. And I see that Ford, Dupree, and Zach Shipman are also available.
And we note also that that council is here this evening as well. Is there are there questions for Janie or thoughts that need to be addressed by the developer or as council?
I'll make a motion to approve the extension request.
Motion by Commissioner Shipp,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Bonnets. Is there further discussion? If not, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Janie.
Thank you. You all have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw.
I hope you enjoyed the rest of the meeting. All right.
And refreshments will be served in the lobby. Are there any other matters to come before the work session this evening?
Just a reminder about the workshops tomorrow.
Yes. And a reminder as well about Friday of this week, we'll be publishing a notice of special meeting for Friday, starting at 2:30 to address, that would be a closed meeting to work with developmental associates on the search for a new town manager. I'll be making welcoming comments on Thursday morning, that morning, and then they'll be doing their work and reporting to us at 2:30 on Friday afternoon. We did have read your request, Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin, with respect to your availability that day. But there is some question as to whether she would be able to vote. Mr. Messick, is that an issue that that council would need?
She needs to appear virtually.
I think Ms. Bailey's gonna check into it for me, but I think I will have to do something else. I'll have to take care of it
Okay,
in other ways.
because once the COVID state of emergency was canceled, all commissioners voting must be in person. So, but knowing the way this board acts and pulls together and the way we've, done so in the past with respect to the recommendations for the new town manager, I feel very certain that there's an accommodation that would be made by virtue of everybody's agreement, perhaps.
I'll probably just be able to make some adjustment
Okay.
at my normal workplace.
Any other discussions? Let's see the
Thank you.
holidays on the 20th, holidays. So we have lots of things upcoming.
Yes, and the holiday parade on the 11th.
On the 11th. So there are flyers around town that indicate all of the wonderful things of the season. And so we'll look forward to seeing you all at that. Other
I'd
than
just
that,
like to say one thing. I'd like to thank staff for all this information we got tonight.
Mhm.
Very
Yep.
well done.
Yep.
Thank y'all very much.
Amen.
thank you. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So much.
Moved by Commissioner Farrell, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Good night.